Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our main stage wrap-up panel, The Best of the Summit, les moments forts du sommet. My name is Cyrielle Chiron. I am the host of the PayPod and your moderator for today. Whether you are tuning in live today at the summit or listening in on demand through the PayPod, welcome, bienvenue. So we just experienced 3 days of content, and 3 days of content means 6 section themes and 24 breakouts per day. 24, yes, plus our plenary stage. So that's a lot, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues at Payments Canada for organizing this amazing event, and to all our speakers for sharing their wonderful insights. In case you weren't able to catch everything, I have with me today a panel of incredible speakers from the summit lineup to reflect on what we learned in 2022. We're going to bring it all together in this discussion, and then after that, we're going to make some predictions about what we will be talking about in 2023. So bring your crystal ball, everyone. But before we do that, let's introduce our panelists. So with me today, I have Lisa Lansdowne-Higgins, SVP Business Transformation and Deposits at the Royal Bank of Canada, Hanna Rossetti, Banking Partner at Kyndryl, Hanna, Zaidi, Chief Compliance Officer, Payments at Wealthsimple, and Akshay Rumalla, Head of Consulting and Analytics at Visa Canada. So bienvenue à tous les quatre, welcome you all, and thanks for spending the next 30 minutes with us. So it's been a big year in payments. Well, I feel like every year has been a big year in payments, but it has been indeed a big year in payments this year. Over the past 3 days, we talked a lot about digital acceleration, how to make the most out of data-rich payments. We heard from Canada's new open banking lead, and we even entered the metaverse. Basically, we looked at new possibilities in payments. So when you reflect on everything we covered at the summit this year, what were your biggest takeaways? And I'd like to start with Hanna first.
Yeah, so payment modernization and open banking are hot topics in the industry, but less so in the public, which I think really needs to change. Unless you're someone who's lived abroad in another market, think like APAC or the UK, most Canadians don't actually know what they're missing out on, how much better their banking experience or money movement experience could be, and how much value they're missing out on. So, for example, the majority of Canadians don't actually know whether they'll have enough money to retire on. And partly this is because they have incredible difficulty in getting a holistic view of one's finances. How much do you need to save? Whether your government benefits will be enough, whether you should buy this thing or invest in this thing. Unless you're a wealthy person, you can go to your financial advisor or private banker versus someone else, to be able to create a plan for you. But for the average person, getting access to this information is really challenging. So from that perspective, not much has changed, but I can speak to a couple specific changes that we've seen in consumer habits from our own ecosystem at Wealthsimple, which is interesting. Our Wealthsimple Cash product is a peer-to-peer payments app. It hit #1 in the App Store, beating out all major social media platforms. And this tells us Gen Z, young students are using the product, and it's changing the way people are using payments. Crypto is a really interesting example as well. We're starting to see people use crypto beyond buying and selling. At the end of March, it was estimated that the Ukrainian government raised over 50 million in crypto donations. Our own clients and team members were those that donated Bitcoin and Ethereum directly to Ukrainian government wallet addresses. And so this was a really good example of how crypto could change payments, no intermediaries, instant, and there's transparency around the clearing and settlement process.
And now crypto is pretty big and was a pretty big theme today in our summit. Akshay, what about you? What is the biggest takeaways?
Firstly, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Excited to be here. I kind of thought about this in three big buckets of takeaways for me from the summit. First, I think there's a maniacal focus in a good way within the ecosystem on enabling frictionless money movement experiences, both domestic and cross-border. We heard about instant account funding and disbursement on day one, which results in like more equitable access for all Canadians, such as the Earned Wage Access Program. And earlier today, we heard about digital remittances, which has brought the advantages of e-commerce to cross-border money movement. This is a key use case, especially as we move towards an immigration-powered economy. And finally, the real-time rail. I'm excited about the possibilities that would open up for us once the system is live. The second big bucket for me was the emergence of alternate payment methods. And Siri, you hosted actually a moderator panel earlier today, and Canadians are changing digital payment preferences, and a lot of this is coming from Gen Z and millennials. Preferences at checkout, preferences in the form of payment factors. We are seeing a rapid decline of cash usage, and we also heard that close to 2/3 of consumers have actually tried a new payment method during the pandemic. That's quite significant. Some data points when we looked at visa data specifically, what we noticed was tapping your physical card at POS has actually declined year over year, while tapping your digital wallet on your phone, like an Apple Pay, has increased. And the third piece within APMs was all around BNPL today, and that was an exciting discussion as well. We expect it to grow over 50% annually in Canada, and a Visa study, we estimated this to be a $50 billion opportunity. When we put this in the context of traditional credit card lending, like the multiples of growth are significantly higher. And the final bucket for me was crypto and metaverse going mainstream. Another fast-growing 2022 trend, I think, will become more prominent over the next few years. I think, as Hanna mentioned, we've been primarily using it as an investing asset today, and we heard some stats around like 13% of Canadians actually hold crypto assets. On the other hand, I feel like the metaverse itself is creating a new shade space between like different worlds. It's like a blending of virtual and augmented reality. We saw Nike selling virtual sneakers, or even Ariana Grande's concert in Fortnite. A new third space is evolving. I think when we think about crypto's integration into mainstream financial services or the evolution of metaverse, I think the importance of this trend to the next generation of customers, right? Like the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas that would come, will actually have a profound impact on the new capabilities that will evolve. So money movement, APMs, and crypto were kind of my three big takeaways.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you mentioned RTR. I'm very excited about RTR too. Lisa, what about you?
Well, first and foremost, again, thanks for having me. And it's just been a great 3 days of the summit, albeit it's virtual. And I think I'm still missing a little bit about being in person and the interactions that we have. I just have to say that I've been so impressed at how we as a community continue to mature the conversation, whether it's the thought leadership that we just heard from my other two colleagues here, or whether it's really talking about the vision of some of the solutions that we thought about early on a few years ago and how they've really come to fruition. And I really have to say, Tracy kicked us off so well, from a CEO of Payments Canada, really talking about what we've accomplished, because I don't think we ever spend any time, we simply achieve and we move on, but just bringing, the new high value payment system to life. I think it allowed us all to breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. It was a lot of work, but it allowed us to really prove here in our own community that we can innovate. She talked a lot about the thought leadership with real-time rails, so I'm with you on that, but ISO and the power of data that we've heard both on the consumers and then the remittance side from my other colleagues, but now thinking about digital currencies, thinking about CDBCs, what role will all of this play in the future? And what will that kind of scale and that interoperability will be? I was really happy also to hear a balanced conversation, because I think with all the thought leadership that we have there, it's really the importance around how we're driving innovation around safety, how we think about soundness, risk, and resiliency. And whenever we can see the importance of having resilient systems and bringing that to fruition, I think that's always important. I know we heard from our Deputy Minister of Finance, who also recognized how much is really going on across the community. You know, there were a number of things for me. It was really hard to nail it down, I have to admit. I was sitting back, I was thinking, I always have that consumer, I always have that business at the forefront. So that next generation of data insights for me, I think that's where we're going to see the paradigm shift, how we're going to think differently as consumers and as businesses around insights in the growth of our business. So I think ISO is the kind of that tipping point. It's language that some of us know. Hopefully most consumers will never know what an ISO data set is and structure is, but that's kind of what's going to open up the aperture for us. I also coupled that with things like digital ID. You know, I'm always so reflective of how far we've come in Canada, and even simple things like Verify Me or other digital assets that help us, you know, create those cornerstones, because that's really where you unlock the potential. And inclusiveness. I was really impressed to hear about how we want to lead in so that everybody's participating, that I want to say no one's left behind. I listened to a great session with Keith Martell, the First Nations Bank of Canada. And I think every time I hear that, I take something away on how it is that we really want to take some of these solutions and this innovation and what's on that forefront to help serve all communities. And I think that's so important. And then for me, the unification of payment processes, system, infrastructure, but that allows us to think differently about metaverse. It allows us to think differently about digital currencies, and as well creating that scale so that we're not creating legacy infrastructure, that we are actually thinking about how it is that we're going to create these resilient open architecture that allows us to innovate and take that next payment capability into our ecosystem. So those were so many things, but I really had to anchor on those.
Yeah, no, and you're right to mention that there's a lot of things we've been talking for a few years that now becoming reality, like the launch of links, the rich payments, and all of this, and all the things that we've been accomplishing all together as an ecosystem. It's pretty impressive, and we have to recognize that. Anna, what about you? What are your key takeaways?
Thank you. Thanks for having me here this afternoon. I'm really pleased to be able to chat about the closing remarks of this great summit this year. I agree with you all in terms of an exciting year that we've had. The speakers were great. The sessions were awesome. I became more and more excited about what lies ahead, just having participated the last 3 days. What we need to remember is that we're the Canadian generation that's going to actually be entrusted to push forward with this path. We should be emboldened and really embrace the changes that we're about to make. Having participated in a couple of modernization changes throughout my career, I was sitting back over the last 3 days and thought about, okay, what are the main takeaways that I have? And I have 4 main takeaways, although I agree it was very difficult to identify them. And the first one that we need to make sure that we focus on is the customer. Keep the customer and the consumer top of mind while we're building that strategy and that roadmap, whether we're focused on a new product service offering or capabilities within your organization, considering AI, considering new partners. Always keep top of mind if this is good for the consumer and good for your business, keeping security always top of mind. That data-rich payments that we'll be able to get with this real-time payment system will help support the small businesses, which I'm really excited about, who have historically been disadvantaged by providing some real-time payment, cash flows, and additional data insights to help provide them the financial support, the financial flexibility that they have been really, truly disenfranchised with over the course of the last payment history. The second important takeaway is trust. The Canadian consumer trusts us. We have a real reputation of working, and they have confidence with us. So always have that top of mind when we're thinking about what we're doing in terms of the systems, opening up to partners, keeping privacy, security, and resiliency top of mind. That's really something that we shouldn't take lightly, and I know we don't as great stakeholders, and ensuring that the customers always has the confidence in our Canadian payment system. With respect to trust, I also wanted to kind of touch base on cyber resiliency. That's going to continue to play an important role when we're dealing with new partners, adding external data, ensuring that our organizations are prepared and have the proper guardrails in place in order to react to incidents that may be taking place, the communications to the stakeholders, to the consumers and the government, always ensuring that we are respecting that in all of the process that we're undertaking. Thirdly, technology. Updating our technology capabilities to ensure that our organizations will be available 7/24, 365 in order that that consumer has a meaningful and personalized service. Imagine anywhere, anytime, with any device. That means that we have to invest in the technology in order to be able to provide that seamless friction that we've been talking about. I participated yesterday in a session where Grace Lee from Scotiabank said it perfectly. Get the beautiful basics right. In other words, improve your infrastructure, allow for more automation tooling, get your line of businesses working in an integrated fashion in order to provide that consumer that customized offering quickly. And lastly, and not last but least, is collaboration. We have a culture of collaboration here in Canada. We have rolled out multiple new quote unquote modern payments over our years, starting with ATMs, debit schemes with Interac, and then recently with EMV. I'm very confident that we have the ability to continue to foster a collaborative cultural ecosystem. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I like the collaboration ecosystem, which actually brings to my next question. We just talked about we're moving very quickly as an ecosystem. Lots of stuff happening. Okay, some might say we're not moving fast enough, but indeed we are moving quickly. And having those opportunities to come together, think big, exchange ideas, and many reflect on what is going on and what we've learned are important. So looking ahead, what do you think is the greatest opportunity for the payment ecosystem in Canada? And I'd like to start with you, Lisa.
No, absolutely. And what a great question. You know, for me, it's always so important. And when I try to look at the solutions, the opportunities that are in front of us and how we innovate in Blue Sky, I always have to put that end consumer, the businesses, those really important entities that drive our economy at the front and center. And for me, first and foremost is really this paradigm shift, this opening of the aperture of really driving new experiences and capability, and that will all be fueled through data. You know, I've heard a couple of my colleagues talk about that opportunity on the consumer and on the business side, but imagine a 7/24 world where we've got contextual, personalized experiences that enables an individual or a business to bring forward growth, to interact with the way they want to. You know, I always am reminded, even in my own family, where I'll see some family members who might be on at midnight waiting for a concert sale to open so that they could be the first in line in tickets and a digital experience. But just imagine what data can help inform around that, and to see those patterns and allow an individual to make critical decisions real time, inform a business on growth strategy, better understand their customer base, and really see what that next opportunity is and improve those relationships. I think for me, first and foremost, that opportunity is around data. But then we talked a little bit about flexible design. It won't work for us if we're going to create infrastructure that isn't scalable, that isn't resilient, that isn't looking at what the next opportunity might be, what the next payment experience could be. So here we think about those digital currencies, we think about those assets, But I don't know what will be beyond that, because I think that we're going to think differently about payments in the future. And I really want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success in this community. And what I've heard the last 3 days really allows us to think differently around that ecosystem. And then for me, I really would like to go on the offense with cyber. I'd like to go on the offense with fraud. I'd really like to find a way to, can I be bold and say eliminate it? If we can have
Yes,
data
you can.
practices, if we can really think differently on that, how could we embed that right from the beginning when we're thinking about the experience and thinking about those systems and those solutions? You know, everyone is at risk in the current infrastructure. So how do we eliminate those things? You know, so when I think about opportunity in the future, I think it's multidimensional. I think it's inclusive. I think it's about those contextual insights. I know we're driving that within the transformation groups that we're doing, that we run from an entity perspective. But I really would love to see, you know, how we're going to continue to collaborate across the community.
Yes, and collaborating around fraud is definitely primordial for us as a country. Hanna, what about you?
So as usual, I'm going to have a contrarian answer, and I would say that I would challenge this and that we need to move much, much faster. So I can tell you from firsthand experience at Wealthsimple, customers demand better ways to spend and send their money digitally, but you know, due to the current monopoly on the payment system, there's a massive barrier to delivering the products that Canadians deserve. And so there's no Canadian payment technology in Canada that's been able to achieve the size and scale at home or globally. That is a direct consequence of the current system. So repeated delays have allowed foreign companies to scale their end user experience in a more progressive market and then rapidly enter into the Canadian market. And we're seeing this happen this year. That's going to happen again with some really big fintech players that are going to be entering the market. And homegrown companies are battling for market share with products that are, you know, handicapped by clunky and anti-competitive infrastructure. So, you know, sort of contextualizing this, the UK saw significant fintech growth following the 2017 decision by the Bank of England to allow non-banks payment companies direct access to the payment systems, including the faster payment system. And this access enabled fintechs to innovate without eroding security or stability. There's no examples globally that where opening up access to payment systems has materially weakened the financial system or caused instability. So if you look at fintechs like Wise or Revolut, they've been able to innovate because of their access to you know, the faster payment system in the UK, for example. And Revolut is a great example where they've been able to explode globally and enter new markets. They were in Canada and then they left Canada because they found the regulatory market to be very, very challenging. So, you know, to conclude, you know, access to a robust real-time rail system that's considered public infrastructure and not the private domain of banks would actually enable all participants to deliver faster, more convenient payment options for their customers.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And then a little bit of competition is always good because it provides better services and product for Canadians, for end users at the end of the day. Akshay, what about you? What do you think the greatest opportunities for the ecosystem?
I'm going to build on what Lisa said. Is for me, it's a shift from just thinking about satisfied customers to connected customers, right? Like we're building these networks, we are opening up access. So how do we drive better connection between our customers? Now, I feel big tech does this really well. They have a ton of data on us and they use it to provide more tailored and bespoke experiences. When we think about our ecosystem, we're launching new modern payment systems, enabling a lot of use cases with privacy and security in place. However, we need to make sure while we're enabling all these opportunities and use cases, in the back end, the data is not fragmented. You know, we're going to get rich data from open banking or ISO 20 or 2022. There's often an assumption that gathering more customer data points can give us richer outcomes and find insights easier. But we need to be intentional about that. In reality, if we are not careful, we may just be creating like larger haystacks of data in which we're trying to find the same insights. For me, I feel data and the way it is used affects everyone, right? Like every data point is an element of someone's life, someone's business, something that really happened. So the use of rich data that we would get access to now with the new capabilities should be used more than ever to benefit our economy, businesses, and consumers. It can unlock what we've never had before, and there's no one quick fix. The other thing we should also be mindful of is while we are using data to better understand our consumers, we shouldn't forget that consumers are increasingly able to use data to better understand us, right? Like we should work in a world where there's high transparency. What we do, what we offer will be easily comparable to others, not just within Canada, but globally. And then consumers will have access to far more choices. So if we need to provide the right services through better trust, seamless user experiences, and actually meet the speed that Hanna said to meet the customer desire across each of these use cases. So I would kind of build on what Lisa said, but think more at being intentional on the data piece specifically.
And what about you, Anna? I have one more question after for everybody, but I want you, Anna, to make sure you have a chance to answer the question about the opportunities for the ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to actually follow up on that last response. I would say the single greatest opportunity would be unlocking that power of that data and AI safely, securely, and in real time, on any device, anytime. I think this is the single most liberating impact we can provide our Canadian consumers, businesses, and increase competition. Having access to that enriched data will allow the payments community to engage with their customers on a more personal and customized basis, including data in the risk process. Really, really important. By using that AI, we will be able to provide those most insightful information and decisions much faster. Traditional banks that are finally open to safely accepting alternative data will help provide that more holistic view to that consumer and will lead to better informed decisions. In particular, allowing for financial inclusivity for those new to Canada, those that have been unbanked, underbanked in the past. I'm really looking forward to increased competition and allowing the data to be able to be used to provide more powerful insights in order to not disenfranchise our Canadian consumers and our small businesses. Speaking of small businesses, this is a significant milestone in obtaining a much more customized financial opportunity for that small business owner, accessing cash flows in real time, controlling their inventory, helping them manage their audit trails, providing more opportunities for greater loans and mortgages that they had basically been shut down because of lack of competition and really lack of powerful data to be augmented and enriched. I'm really looking forward to being able to see much more competition in that area. Thank you.
No, that's great. I like the real time, the access, the end users. That really a lot of opportunities for the ecosystem. So now I'm going to bring my last question. This is where I'm going to ask everybody to bring their crystal ball and looking at the future. So let's make some predictions about next year. Let's try. What do you think will be the biggest topic at the 2023 summit? What do you think we will be going to talk about in 2023? Or maybe what do you want us to talk about in 2023? Because what we're going to talk about and what you want to talk about might be different. I know what I'm going to get excited about. Like I'm going to definitely get excited about RTR and getting close to launch and see all the opportunities that this can bring. But I'd like to hear your thoughts and think, what do you think we're going to talk about in 2023? So let's start with you, Anna.
Thank you. So my crystal ball, outside of finding out where we are generally with our 2023 first phase of the rollout, I'll leave that to Payments Canada and the rest of the community to talk about. But really my prediction, my first one would be the status of the emerging disruptors in the payments sector. I think we're going to be talking a lot more about cryptocurrency, the metaverse, alternate payments that we've talked about, and representing that new next frontier of modern payments. I think there'll be a lot more emphasis on it as we move closer to that digital currency that they will have be able to provide a real method of currency exchange. That would be the first one. The second one would be security and resiliency, finding the right place within that whole decision process within specifically the traditional banks, as well as the fintech new partners coming in, and understanding more around the compliance, the regulatory services that need to be in place in order for us to continue that confidence and trust that our consumers in Canada have. So there'll probably be a little bit more conversation in a granular level with that as we get closer to more of the launch. And then thirdly, I would say I'd be excited to find out about new and emerging partnerships that we really haven't thought of today. Traditional banks with fintechs, retailers, automotive industries, mortgage brokers, real estate, and even to a degree the health services, trying to understand how much more data and how much more we can partner together to get a better understanding of that consumer in their full life cycle. So I'm excited to find out. And those are three things that I think will be part of the 2023 summit. I look forward to it.
You're right. Payments is everywhere, right? So making sure we can have all those partnerships and those possibilities, and there are enhancements everywhere, different part of payments. So bringing that together for the best for end users will be definitely something interesting to look at. What about you, Hanna? What do you want to talk about in 2023?
Yeah, I think the two topics already mentioned, there's real-time rail and there's crypto. So with RTR, we're targeting, I think, summer of 2023. So we're definitely interested to see where we're going to be at. As Wealthsimple is now a member of Payments Canada, we're planning to take full advantage of what that looks like. And so there's a lot of ongoing industry discussions on what this could look like, and we're working out the details on how it'll work, but fairly optimistic of some of the use cases and things that we're going to be able to do there. I think the second thing with crypto is we've seen the industry explode. Recent developments suggest that it's really only the start, especially in Canada. So our experience, at Wealthsimple Crypto as the first registered crypto trading platform is that crypto is reaching a lot of young investors and often acts as a gateway for more traditional financial investment products. So we're seeing firsthand the convergence of crypto within the traditional financial system, and we think it's going to be a much bigger theme next year. So this stat has already been quoted by Akshay, but 13% of Canadians now own crypto directly. I think what'll be interesting is seeing that next step of whether there's going to be a shift towards the utility of using that crypto as a form of payments, and we're kind of already seeing that. And there's a lot of progress and innovation that's being done incredibly quickly. I think the question is, when is it going to hit like the broader mainstream? And our very own Chief Legal Officer, Blair Wiley, did a fireside chat this morning on stablecoin. So definitely check that out on how the payment landscape will be changing because of that.
Okay, so I have to say we have 2 minutes left, but I want to hear from you, Akshay, and from you, Lisa. So what are you, in 30 seconds, 1 minute each, what are you looking for at Akshay next year?
For me, with the appointment of Open Banking Lead, I would expect us to have more developments on that file and we get more real at next year's summit. 2, crypto's role more specifically in the future of money movement. So the evolution of CBDCs and stable coins and actually moving money versus just an asset. And lastly, I think we'll see more on embedded finance. Open innovation has made the expensive banking infrastructure more accessible to serve the underbanked, to serve small businesses. Any company can become a fintech with embedded finance now. So I would expect us to see a bit more on that development as well. So those would be my 3 things.
Okay, what about you, Lisa?
Well, I don't know how I can add to all of that because it is such a busy ecosystem and there is so much change. If I pick up on any of the topics in there, if I think about crypto, I think the evolving regulation is really important. And I know Hanna had touched on that earlier. I do think that we're going to have to look at that specifically as we think about the transparency that will have to come with that and what that will look like so that we've got the resiliency and the safety and soundness around it. I'm really excited to actually see how that will integrate and embed itself as part of the larger financial economy and how we'll be able to support and move that forward. The only other thing that I'll call a vertical, and Anna, you touched a little bit on it in the different industries. I would have also said I think ESG is going to be top of conversation. Sure. What will that look like? Because I think the data that underpins from a payments will help to lead us through and better understand how we can reinforce those types of measures against the entire community and how we meet those objective goals from a Canadian perspective.
Well, that's good. I have to stop it now. We are out of time. So thank you all so much. Merci beaucoup. That's all the time we have. It's been an absolute pleasure to reflect on the past 3 days with you. Really, what a fantastic group of speakers. So I will now turn it over to Gary Foster, the chair of the board at Payments Canada, for his closing remarks. Et moi, je vous dis à bientôt sur les ondes et à l'année prochaine pour un sommet, si possible, in person. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you for having us.